Hi, this is Cheryl Lewis. This episode is designed to teach you something about a very dirty job. It's a little unusual though, because instead of me being taught, I already know how to do it. I'm a wood turner, and I demonstrate around the country teaching people how to take their fallen trees in their backyard and turn them into bowls and other really cool pieces of art. So I'm going to show you a little bit today about how it's done. I'm really excited when I get to talk about wood turning because it's cool. You get to take something that was almost firewood and turn it into something that is a legacy piece that can be passed down through the generations. In fact, my website, my personal website for wood turning is called almostfirewood.com. I love knowing that things are not going to waste and that the trees, which have a rich history already, get to extend that even further. So I want to show you how that works. You know, you start with a tree, it's growing vertical like this, and then it falls. And when it falls, you just go with your chainsaw and cut a section. And you want your section to be longer than it is wide. The reason being, you won't get your full bowl potential if you don't do it that way, unless you're going to do what's called turning end grain. This is end grain right here. That's where the pith of the tree is. Think of this tree like straws. So imagine straws are running up and down, and that's where the moisture is running through the tree. So that's why you have cracking on the end, because the moisture and the heat is interacting a lot faster than it is in the center. So this is a little longer than it is wide so that you can cut these cracked pieces off. The cracked pieces are not great for wood turning, but you can take a little piece and cut it in half. So you're going to slice that right there. And then you have a nice piece you can put on the lathe. Now ideally, you could put this on the bandsaw and you would just turn a perfect circle right here. When you do that, you'd end up with a piece like this. That's really nice to put on your lathe. It saves you a lot of time. My bandsaw happens to be out of order right now, so it's going to take me a little bit extra time to turn these sharp corners away. But that's no problem. I have a sharp tool, and I have the top of the line lathe. As far as I'm concerned, it's called a Robust American Beauty, and I've only had it for a couple of years and I absolutely love it. It's heavy as a house, so I don't get a lot of vibration, and I can turn up to really high speeds as I turn. Now, I've only been a turner for about 5 years. There are many turners who are far better than I am. I feel like I'm always learning. So what I share with you today is my way of turning. It's not the way of turning. There are lots of different versions. As you can see, you have some successes and you have some failures. But these aren't failures, are they? They're just learning opportunities. I call these my wall of shame, but I keep them. I've had them for years. It's been a while since I've turned through the bottom of a bowl, but I love to remember that everything doesn't always go well, and that's not a big deal. As my mentor Andy used to say, there's always more wood. All right, so I'm going to dive in, and I'm going to put this piece on the lathe. I'm just going to get that out of the way and that out of the way. If I have a nice big horse trough, all of my shavings can go into there. You can use it to plug wet places in the pasture, or some people use them in their chicken yards. There's a little sensitivity with walnut wood for animals, so I recommend that people be a little careful about mixing the shavings as far as that goes. All right, so let me show you how this works. I'm going to do what's called turning between centers. And that means that I have two sharp points. I've got a sharp point here, and I've got a sharp point here. This is a headstock. This is a tailstock. This is movable. This is going to be the bottom of my bowl. This is going to be the inside of my bowl. So I just want to kind of center this thing. I can eyeball it and kind of tell about where that's going to be. And then I'll just shove this up onto it and pinch it closed. And that's rotating pretty steady, so I think I did a pretty good job. Now, I want to really be concerned with safety more than anything. Safety is more important than coming away with a great bowl. I want to come away with a great arm and hand and head and life. So, first things first, I'm a girl. I have long hair. I'm going to pin up my hair. Get that hair out of the way. I also wear a smock because I don't like shavings all in my clothes. You don't have to wear a smock. It's kind of nice if you've got pockets and can store some of the things that you're going to need during the turning journey, so you can just reach and grab. All right, my tool rest is where I rest my sharp tool. So I always begin with what's called a bowl gouge. It has a grind on it that's called the David Ellsworth grind. This is a tool made by him. He's an artist in North Carolina. They call him the grandfather of wood turning. He started the national, now international, American Association of Wood Turners organization. He has membership #1, and I can't even imagine how many members there are now. So I love his tools. I've taken his master class. I learned many, many things from him. But that doesn't mean that I do everything the way that he does. So David, when you see this, forgive me for the things that I might do different. So I always want to pre-spin the wood and make sure that it's not going to bump into this tool rest, so I don't see anything flying. When I have people that are standing by watching, I make sure that they don't stand directly in front of me, because that could be the line of fire, so they're off at an angle. All right, also safety. I have a fire blanket handy, I have a fire extinguisher handy. I've never had a fire, but you're working with dry shavings, so you do have to be careful. And I take that back. One winter, I had a heat lamp behind me just to help warm me and to give me light. And I started smelling smoke, and I turned around, and some of those shavings were on fire. So you do have to be careful. I always wear a helmet. I'll try to remove or lift the helmet when I want to say something to you. But first, I'm just concerned about knocking off these hard edges and getting this thing round. So here we go. So if you look at this, you can kind of see the outline of the bowl of what's going to, all that shadow is going to be removed. Each time I want to move the tool rest closer, I want to stop the lathe so that it never interrupts. And I like to put a piece of kitchen liner on the lathe itself so that my tool doesn't roll around. The reason I keep moving my tool rest closer is because the farther that that tool hangs off the tool rest, the more it's going to rock and shake and chatter. And so you want to stay as close to the wood as you can. The reason that it stalls every now and then is because you've got two sharp points, and one of them is digging into the wood, and if it clears out a space, then it just wants to spin. So you keep it as sharp as you can. Now, you would think that this would be something that elite few people would know how to do unless you learned it in shop in high school. Back in my day, they didn't teach girls to take shop, so I didn't learn it then. But actually, I belong to a local club in Nashville called the Tennessee Association of Woodturners, and there are 200 members in that club. Okay, so you can see how now this is round. I've got continuous wood all the way around. So now's when the fun really begins. Now I can start to shape the outside of the bowl. And I want to figure out where that little thing called a tenon is going to be. A tenon is important. It's a little section of wood that I'll carve into this that will allow me to hold it when I flip it and carve out the inside. So I've got to go through this bark and make me a tenon. Let's do that. You can see that I'm going ahead and getting some of that hard side off and out of the way. I like nice form, almost like pottery, nice rounded edges. So this is what they mean when they say that the tree gets to have a say in what it's going to become. So if the bark wasn't reaching inside so deeply, then I would already be shaping the outside of the bowl and I would have a larger bowl. But because this bark is persistent, then this tree wants its bowl to be shallower. I'm going to have to go deeper to find the bottom. All right, I'm starting to see the light of day. The bark is inching out a little bit. So now it matters what the diameter of my tenon is going to be. And the way that I decide that is by measuring the smallest diameter while still open of the 4-jaw chuck. The 4-jaw chuck is just something that will grip the tenon and allow me to flip the bowl. I want to measure that distance. It's about 2 inches. So I know that I can come over here and get a 2-inch tenon. Right now I need to clear, I'm right at the ability to get a 2-inch tenon at the edge of that bark. But rather than push it, I'll make it a little wider. And then I've got the skew, and the skew is just going to help me get a dovetail angle on that tenon so that these jaws, which are dovetail, will grip it as perfectly as possible. All I have to do is push it in. Okay, and then David does something a little different than some turners. He'll create a second tenon to give you just a little breathing room, then you don't create those wall of shame bowls with the hole out. Okay, now I'm in my favorite spot. So now is when I get to shape the bowl. So what I'm really shooting for is a nice curve from the base, which is here, to the rim, which is here. I'm going to get rid of anything that interrupts that nice perfect curve. So any of this that's in the way is going to go. My mentor, Andy, he's 92 years old. He said, I've never had a lesson. I've never taught anyone to turn. You're welcome to watch. So you take that tool and you clamp it to your hip. And that's really good advice. It gives you stability. And you don't move your tool, you move your body. So they call it the turner's dance. And I'm just going to have this on the tool rest and I'm going to shift my body. And that way I don't have a lot of unevenness here with the tool. All right, so this is getting pretty close. You can see how we've got a nice curve going here. The way that I tell if I'm on track is I take a pencil and I roll it along the outside of the bowl. And if I hit flat spots like right there, I know I'm not curved yet. And that is my trick. I'm going to be doing something called the shear cut, and the shear cut is just going to let me round these edges a little bit, and I'll decide how much of that bark to take off. All right, that looks a lot better. And I think my pencil is going to say that we're fine to flip. Good. All right, and the bowl decided it wanted to hang on to some of the bark, so we'll let it. Now let's flip it. So this lathe has a really cool feature that not all lathes have. And that is a quick way to get this bad boy out of the way. That's a wonderful feature. All right, then I'm going to get this sharp point out. I'm going to put this 4-jaw chuck on, and then we're going to open the jaws just a little bit. I will open them until it fits. Now it fits. And you close them back tight. Half on that side, half on that side, and you're good. Okay, right now I'm just going to make a nice clean rim so that the edge of our bowl is tidy. Now you'll notice my hip is moving. My tool is moving because my hip is moving. So again, I want to keep this tool rest as close to the wood as I can get it because I'm going deeper and deeper. I'm just moving it in. We're getting deeper, so we want to be careful with our depth. As we get a little deeper, you can just put this same pencil down at the bottom and kind of eyeball the edge, raise it up to the edge, and that tells us how deep we are. So we're that deep. We can go that deep. So we've got 3/4 of an inch, half an inch. We're good. So as my edge is getting narrower, then I really pay attention to the depth because I want this thickness, whatever I end up with, to be uniform all the way to the bottom. That's what it is going to keep it from cracking since it's a wet bowl. All right, so we're getting really close to final depth. But I do want to go about half that wide. So I'll just be careful about my bottom. And before I go further, I want to just give the inside rim of that edge a slight angle. It's more pleasing when you pick up the bowl to feel that. So I think I have my final thickness here. It feels a little thicker there. And then it thins out again. So I just need to level out that hump a little bit. Woodturners have a joke about one more cut. Sometimes that one more cut is the cut of doom. But you gotta do what you gotta do. And that hump is gone. Perfect. Okay, not perfect. It's never quite perfect, at least when I turn it, but this is an awesome bowl. Now, if I was going to sell this bowl, then I would have to let it dry so that I could sand it adequately. Sanding wet just gums up your sandpaper. But, and you can still see some little tool marks, so it'll still require some sanding. But I think that so that you can see what a finished bowl looks like, I'm just going to flip it around and take off that base. I can do a little touch sanding later, no big deal. A paper towel so that this imprint doesn't imprint on the inside of a wet bowl. I'll just do like that, and that. Okay. And then I've still got this nice hole in the bottom. It tells me exactly where to realign as I bring in this tailstock. Make sure it's just right. Now, because of the way that I designed the shape, the form, I can remove this layer and come down and let this little part of this layer be my base. Ideally, you want your base to be about 1/3 of what your overall diameter is. And that looks like it's about right. Now I'm going to switch tools and take off that base. This is where we go to the skinny guy. You want to undercut it on the base so that it sits on the table without rocking. I would sand this very bottom anyway, so basically what you have is a bowl. And this again is a Bradford pear bowl. It will likely warp a little bit as it dries because like a football, it'll pull up. The pith side dries differently than the rest. I'll wrap this in wet shavings for a while. When it's dried out, then I can final sand it. And it'll be an awesome little bowl. It's very satisfying to take something from firewood to family heirloom.